Good evening. Welcome to Captive Audience. It's Friday, May 2nd, and I'm Sunny Danforth. I'm in Florida today, this evening. And I'll tell you, it's quite different being in Florida versus being in Oregon. I've been here for a few days. This is my second trip recently, and I still haven't seen any graffiti. And it's very noticeable. You find no, no, yes. I don't know if y'all heard that, but that was the story there that I wanted to bring on. So anyway, hey, listen, it's different here in Florida. I've um, I've seen one very small homeless camp. There was like two. It wasn't no tent. It was a couple of about three people and a couple of shopping carts, and that's it. One, and I've driven quite a ways. So it's very, very different here versus Oregon. And the in Oregon, you I guess get numb to seeing all the graffiti and the homeless camps everywhere. And what one thing I'm not numb to is the lawlessness that's happening there. But let's get to what else I wanted to talk about. But I just wanted to it's interesting. It's interesting seeing being in another state and going, wow, we don't have, it's not like the same. It's you do get numb to seeing things and being subjected to things, much like being in a pot of warming water going to boil, right? And if it's you just get used to things. Well, the Forest Service is not getting used to things. And thankfully, the Forest Service is going to start clearing homeless camps in and around Bend in the Deschutes National Forest. This is a huge win. And so, because of Trump and his administration, the new America First administration, instead of America Last and America Destruction, they're going to be working on, they're opening up our forests for business, quite frankly. And so clearing it out, trying to help it so that it's not going to have these raging forest fires. And that means getting rid of the homeless camps and all the debris. And that's a win-win for Oregon for sure. And sadly, though, the state says they're doing a lot, and the state of Oregon is putting a lot of money into helping the homeless. And believe me, I have compassion for people that are down and out, but there are many that just this is their way of life that they've chosen. And so no matter what you do for them, they're not going to change their way. And when you allow homeless camps to be there, and all of the trash, the debris, this poor sanitation, it's pretty bad, and it's not healthy. It's not a healthy environment for anybody to live in. And so I was really happy to see the story out of Coin 6 about the national forest is going to be cleaned up. And it's directly tied to the forest restoration work. And I just think it's wonderful. There's those that want to not have this happen. Believe it or not, I can't imagine that. But the homeless advocates, meanwhile, seized on the timing of yesterday as the Forest Service officers blocked the access roads, and they're going, no, this is done. So kudos to our to the Trump administration. You know, I can't just say the federal government. We are the supposed to be, the federal government works for us. And I was going to say we're to be sort of the people that are paying attention to that. But when you have an agency that, or an administration that doesn't care for the people, you kind of get the way Oregon's become, because the Democrats have been in charge of Oregon for over 30 years. And so the state of Oregon is directly correlates to that government that is in charge of our state. Okay, we have high crime getting higher. We've got the cartels in there. We have homeless. We have drug issues severely, and graffiti. You know, I live in a small town, and now we're seeing not just, you know, petty crime, we're seeing more violent crime and even murder. You know, maybe you had a murder. I can think of one that happened in the last, well, I can think of two, actually, now that I think about it, in the last 12 years. But now we're having more. That was 12 years ago until this year. And that there was only two. So things are not very well there. And so moving on, there is unfortunately Geldwind that makes windows is shutting their Oregon factory and laying off workers. It's looking like they have laid off 128 workers, and their company is now based in Charlotte. That would be North Carolina. And this is what happens when you have a state doing what it is. You know, for example, the cat tax. What business wants to pay a tax before they've even paid their employees, before they've paid insurance, before they've paid their taxes? And the gross receipts tax that we have here in Oregon. And Oregon is looking to add more. As we've all talked about what's coming down the pike. Now, this other story that Oregon Catalyst has got here, there is about the cost of gas. And so all of these things cost manufacturers more money. You wonder why things cost so much? Well, the price of fuel adds a lot, because that's how it all gets around, be it a ship or a truck or the barges. All of those things are using fuel. And so it directly correlates to the price of goods. Now, yesterday, I paid $3.05 for gas, and right now it's looking like gas is at nearing $4 a gallon, and the legislators are looking to increase that tax by another 20 cents a gallon. And that would put Oregon in the top highest number 4 position in the nation for the price of gas. And yet, you know, Oregon doesn't have, the legislators, our state government does not have an income problem. As I've said many times, it has a spending problem. So more money is not going to solve the problems. It is truly about the spending. And I was really happy to see that the Oregon Republicans are offering a less costly transportation plan, and, you know, which is cutting things. You know, it says no new taxes. There's an article that is out of Oregon Live And the headline says, Oregon Republicans offer less costly transportation plan, no new taxes, and no public transit, no rail, no bicycle, pedestrian, or climate-friendly projects. Well, that's okay. You know what the Department of Transportation is supposed to do? Pave the roads, uh, plow the snow off the roads, and keep the roads in good working order. And transportation, there are many other projects, but some of them climate friendly projects, I don't really care about that. I don't follow the climate hoax. And so we want smart use of our tax money is what we want. So I was very pleased to, see what the Republicans, and it's about time they come up with something that would help and be a pushback against let's just increase everything, because that's what all politicians seem to want is let's just increase it all. Well, so their proposal identifies $730 million in refocused spending and spending cuts they'd like to see at the transportation agency. And the largest shift would be a redirection of the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, which is mostly funded by a 0.1% payroll tax and pays for public transit programs statewide. And Republicans said that shift would allow the state to spend $306.5 million per biennium on other transportation needs. Remember when this past year and the year before, oh no, we don't have enough money to plow the snow on the roads. Baloney. And the state of the highways in Oregon is they need work, and they need work because when we have, people drive with studded tires and the chains when it's bad weather, and that tears up the road. So there's a lot of work to be done with that. So I like the House Republican plans to cut funding for some areas and shift the money and not increase taxes, because that's not going to help anybody in Oregon. Absolutely. So North Plains, Oregon gas is $3.59. There you are. Yeah, it's and if they get this other tax increase, it's just going to go up more. Well, now let's talk about energy. We were just talking about gas. That is a form of energy. Well, the climate advocates, this is a story out of OPB. The climate advocates are pushing for passage of energy affordability and resilience legislative package. Well, it's coming from the left's side of the aisle. And so whatever the title is, you can believe it's the opposite. It's not energy affordability, because our rates have already increased like 50% across Oregon because of the so-called green energy, the unreliable energy that has been mandated in the state of Oregon. It was mandated by the feds as well. But with this administration, thank goodness, the America First administration, the common sense administration of Trump, they're stopping this. And so this is the coalition. It's a coalition of more than 50 climate, environmental, and energy affordability groups. You can think NGOs, okay? And they're asking Oregon legislators to pass a handful of bills that aim to lower energy costs. I don't believe it. Because I'm a skeptic. Okay, I'm a skeptic, and I've learned to be that way, because no matter what the left says, it's not what it's going to be. And there's along with that is electricity demand in the Northwest is going to double in the next 20 years. This is what a computer model what they're looking at. Demand for electricity in the Northwest. Now that is Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and Montana is kind of what they're looking at. But and it's because data centers, electrifying transit and buildings, and producing hydrogen will drive demand, according to the Northwest Power and Conservative Council, which that's actually a federal group, and it is there are 8 governor appointed members from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Western Montana. And so this council has presented their 20-year forecast. And what's interesting in this article that's out of OPB is that the data centers, Oregon has the highest number of data centers in the nation. And they require a lot. There's more than 100 data centers in Oregon, and there's more than 5,000 data centers throughout the United States. And that's the most of any country. Now, truthfully, we want data centers in one hand, and I say that because this is also part of AI, artificial intelligence, and the race to dominate that. And we need the United States to dominate there. And yes, I did see what happened to Spain, Portugal, and France, and that's why I'm talking about this. Thanks, Pam, because when you add what happened over there, that Pam is her comment, the so-called green energy, it's the unreliable energy, actually, the intermittent energy supplies like solar and wind that have actually broke the electrical grid, because the electrical grid, and I've talked, for those of you that have watched for all these years, David and I talked a lot about energy, and I've often talked about energy. And our former governor, about 3 years ago, said, it was in her last term, so it's about 3 years ago, she said, Oregon is going to have more blackouts and brownouts, and people need to have generators and make sure that they've got power. This is exactly why, because these intermittent power sources, they break the power grid. And it was actually those same sources, the wind and the solar, that caused the big blackout that happened in Texas in the middle of winter. Do you remember that? What was that, 3 years ago or so? And a huge blackout. Their whole power grid went down, and it was at the worst time of year, a huge winter storm, and it left I don't know that it was the entire state, but I think it was. And people there, when you say, well, the power went out, well, it's freezing temperatures. There was ice everywhere, big snowstorms. And what people that live in Florida don't know about is that you then end up with freezing pipes when you are not able to keep your home warm. Then when it all thaws out, let me tell you, the plumbing companies have a lot of work. But now is the flooding happening. So it just exacerbates the problem, not having power. And so here we are in Oregon, and pushing the these unreliable energy sources. And yes, Lori, that is exactly how people died. People died in that storm because they were freezing and they couldn't keep warm. And I remember some people, that reports of people put the whole family in one bedroom and piled on all their blankets, and people are having their generators too close to them, dying of carbon monoxide poisoning, but trying to stay warm with all the blankets and trying to have basically their body heat heating up a room, one small room. And with everybody under a whole pile of blankets. And it's not safe for people, but it's this unreliable so-called green energy, which it's nothing green about it. I'm not going to go there. It is just not reliable energy. And here you have in Oregon, out by where I live, the Boardman to Hemingway coal plant shut down. They were going to build a natural gas energy plant, but the governor scrapped that plan, and then they tore down the chimney of the coal plant to make sure that it would never go back online. And this is government of Oregon not taking care of the citizens of Oregon, truthfully. And so here you have their so I wanted to talk about that because it really does affect Oregon. And Lars Larson did an article yesterday, and he says, and this is from Oregon Catalyst, but Lars Larson says the big blackout, a warning to Oregon. And he says, if you felt sorry for the folks in Spain this week with their electric power failed for most of the day, understand the Pacific Northwest is in for the same fate very soon. And so 2 weeks ago, Spain celebrated hitting the dubious goal of 100% renewable power, meaning mostly wind and solar. And then Monday, the lights went out. And he says, are the two events connected? Yes, they are. And, it's, if you, I have a family member that works in the electric industry, and anyway, I understand some of the electric industry. I'm by no means am I an expert by any means, but power requires its supply and demand, and there's a fine balance of keeping what the demand is, keeping the supply there for them. But when you have wind turbines that don't go, they don't produce anything when there's no wind. A high pressure system comes in, bam, there's no wind. That's what happens. The wind blows when the low pressure systems come through. And when it's cloudy with a low pressure system, maybe, or raining or storming, the solar isn't going to work or be as efficient. And no amount of batteries is going to solve the problem. So, so trying to balance this. And I remember listening to a lecture from a fellow who who was working for the dams in the Pacific Northwest. And he was talking about how originally the dams were never really, their electrical system was not designed to just ramp up or down, depending on the demand. They kind of went, but now they've had to adapt. And they have, through technology, they've been able to adapt pretty well to be able to ramp up and down as the supply and demand is. And then you add the third leg of the alternate energies. And that's the only thing I can call them. They are alternate energies. They're not reliable, the unreliable energies. And that's the danger to the power grid in the Pacific Northwest and everywhere. So if you don't have a generator yet, go out and buy one. Take care of you and your family for when the power goes out, because I guarantee you the power is going to be going out in the great state of Oregon. And yet we have hydropower that is so reliable. We have natural gas that's there that could be reliable if they would allow the to be generating electricity. You know, they could burn trash. You know, Hawaii or islands, that's one of the ways that they burn, that they generate electricity is burning trash. Why stick it in the ground? Burn this type of thing. You know, there's other ways. Oh, I'm reading your comments about the candidates. Boy, Lathrop would be a good one, wouldn't he? I would love to see Lathrop. So there, I wanted to talk about that and give you a warning because it's exactly what happened in Spain is what can happen here with us. And then also one of the reasons that the data centers came to the Pacific Northwest is because of the hydropower. They're actually contracting to buy the hydropower and not buying the alternative energies. They're buying because that's the cheapest. That's the least expensive power that we've got next to nuclear, and we don't have any nuclear. So that's why your rates are all going up. It's the green energy that's actually causing it. We're paying for it in rates, and we're paying for it in tax credits, which actually helps break our state. It's the green energy scam, and it's a sad deal. Well, this story is out of the Willamette Week, and there's dismal financial results threaten Oregon hospitals. The costs are rising much faster than reimbursements, and a lack of discharge options is costing big bucks. Well, when you have a homeless population and an illegal population that must get health care, and they can't afford it to pay for it. They don't have insurance, and even the Oregon's health plan doesn't pay much. Believe me, this is a big deal for Oregon, that hospitals are expected. It feels like that. Hospitals are just expected to, well, here, you're a nonprofit. And in fact, let's see, there was a part in this story. Nearly all of Oregon's hospitals are nonprofits. And the state figures measure operating margin, the difference between revenue and expenses. And, this is why hospitals close. This is why doctors are leaving. And 3 of the state's largest hospitals reported large losses in 2024. Now, are they reporting the losses because they're not getting COVID money anymore? I don't know. But it's not just rural hospitals. Providence, Portland lost $86.2 million. Legacy Emmanuel, $85.5 million. And Salem Hospital, $50.8 million. And the costs are rising faster than the revenues. And as I mentioned, when you have illegals and homeless people, the hospital still has to supply health care too. This is what's driving up the costs, that as well as all the costs everywhere have gotten higher. So it's not a good look for the medical profession and the hospitals in in Oregon at all. In order for the hospitals to still, be functional, it's bad. It's really bad. Second area of this report highlights Oregon's generous compensation for nurses. And they recently looked at nurses' pay across the country and found that a couple of states pay nurses in absolute dollars, California and Hawaii. But when pay is adjusted for Oregon's lower cost of living, Oregon nurses are the highest paid in the nation. And this may be part of a result of a 2023 law that established the nation's first nurse staffing ratios and increased demand for nurses. So that could be part of the problem too. But you want to have good nursing staff. So be careful there with our hospitals. I hope they don't all go bankrupt. Well, our Governor Kotek and the politicians are pushing this bill to remove voter rights. Have y'all been following that? I bet you have. And I thought about talking that on Wednesday, but Dawn had another he wanted to talk about some other stuff. So I saved it for today and this is, they want to remove the voters' rights on many, many things. Let's see. Senate Bill 952 strips the voters of the right to vote in U.S. Senate replacement elections. Let's see. Does that mean if Senator Wyden keels over or resigns, then the voters are not going to be able to elect a new senator? The governor would just appoint one, much like has happened to our Supreme Court judges and many other judges in the state. That's not good. House Bill 1177 would by force steal the people's kicker tax refund without a vote, and despite that it's in the Constitution. That bill had a speedy hearing, so you wouldn't notice your rights are being debated away. Let's see. Governor Kotek drafted House Bill 2528, would empower her agencies to extend taxes and ban products related to nicotine, and to do so without a vote of the people. And it's in the Constitution that if there's a tax, we're supposed to vote for it. But you see, they call them fees. And people oppose this idea 9-1, and yet it's still being pushed. Then we have Senate Joint Resolution 30 would slow down and shut down people's right to petition by grossly expanding the number of signatures needed to put a citizen measure on the ballot by as much as 33%, and also require signature gathering jurisdiction requirements. The only good news about that part is you would have to have a certain amount of signatures from every county or district or something, instead of just go pay people over in Portland metro area to get a petition on the ballot. That's the only good part of that I see anyway. Senate Bill 687 would remove voter approval for local gas taxes, and House Bill 3166 would strip political parties of the ability to fully nominate their own candidates. Oh, let's see. Then we have to go to ranked, and while forcing ranked choice voting on Oregonians, despite the fact that ranked vote scheme was rejected by Oregon voters just months ago. And this is what happens when you have a supermajority in the Senate and the House, and they run amok, and they will run over the will of the people. Absolutely. It's happened time and time and time again, not just here in Oregon, but in other states as well. Do I think that we'll ever get sick of one-party dictatorship? I'll tell you, I don't know. I do know that Oregon shifted a little more right in the general election. That's the good news. Um, but did it go far enough? I have no idea. You know, I keep wondering how much pain the people of Oregon have to experience before they will go, oh gosh, let's see, it's what I'm voting for that's getting me these results. You know, change your vote, you get different results. And I would hope that more would vote for conservative ideals and conservative politicians. And I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Well, hey, have you all seen the Jesse Waters where interview where he was Elon Musk invited him to the Doge board meeting? If you haven't, I'm going to post it a link to his Fox. It's a YouTube video, but it was his what he aired on Fox. Jesse Waters aired on Fox, and I'll tell you that was eye-opening. Very, very eye-opening if you haven't seen it, because they talk about, in fact, Jesse, it's kind of funny. I watched the whole thing and Jesse says, okay, thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to sit here. I won't say anything unless I get bored. And it ended up, he was talking like the whole time, but asking some very good questions. And as they went around the table, so the other part of the interview, I'm not sure when it's airing, maybe tonight, I don't know. But, you know, they start talking about what they have found, much like the board meetings of President Trump, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, the money is pouring out of the Treasury, but who is receiving it? This is a big deal. So this article from PJ Media, I have got to paste in here, and this is by Robert Spencer. He did a great job of highlighting some of this, some of bringing up some of these what was covered in there. But when they start talking about let's see. So they have, let's see. It looks like the waste and the madness that Doge has already uncovered elsewhere inside the government, most notably in USAID. Yesterday, Doge announced on X over the last 2 days, agencies terminated. In the last 2 days, agencies terminated 401 wasteful contracts with a ceiling value of $2.1 billion and a savings of $613 million, including a $276,000 Treasury contract for a Kenya program coordinator and a $228,000 Treasury contract for Kenya, Uganda, Namibia, and Tanzania cruiser vehicles, a $24,000 DHS contract for a 2-day training on equal opportunity in employment, a $15,000 DHS contract for out and equal workplace advocates, and a $5.9 million DOC contract for environmental consulting support services. I love what Doge is doing. I voted for this. There is so much waste, fraud, and abuse, and what Doge has found and is still continuing to find is just something else. And in fact, one of the young men, he said, you know, I dropped out of Harvard so I could come and do this. And Jesse Waters says, what? You dropped out of Harvard? He says, oh yeah. He goes, the ability to learn here a lot more than what's sitting in a class of computer science at Harvard. And I'll tell you, Elon Musk and his team have put together some of the brightest minds. And I just believe that these are people that, like this young man, that he wanted to come and help. He wanted to help his country, you know. It was just amazing to it's wonderful to see the to see that they wanted to come and do what's right for our country. Let's stop this waste, fraud, and abuse from happening. Let's claw back the money. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there is now, and Epic TV has got an article here, Facts Matter, that one of the things that it says that 160 billion has been saved, thousands of contracts killed, DEI grants lost, the Doge Roundup. Facts Matter. And what they have saved right now, according to the official tally today of the efforts, have saved U.S. taxpayers roughly $160 billion, which is equivalent to just under $1,000 saved for each one of us, every U.S. taxpayers. I'm all for saving money. Cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse. And if you've never watched or heard of Epic TV, I'm going to post this link down here in the comments, because you know what? There's alternatives out there, alternative media, because what we have experienced so much in America. And Stephen Miller, he talked about this in the yesterday or Wednesday, I guess it was, in the press briefing room. It's really the propaganda. You can't call it mainstream media or whatever. It's the United States propaganda media, which is why people or more people are doing podcasts, much like Captive Audience, and other news go to the Epic Times, PJ Media, go to other sources, not there are so many sources. And if you aren't on X, where you're going to get things that are not, I can't say that nothing there is censored, but that truly is the free speech area. But I always look at Epic Times, PJ Media, and some other sources. We have been told and lied to so much. And if we can wake up more and more people as to the truth of what's been going on, and the truth is hard to swallow sometimes, it's just like, oh my gosh. And Dawn and I talked about that a little bit on Wednesday, and so back to this, what they've been saying. He goes, it's at their Doge board meeting. He was looking, this fellow Korstein said he's been looking through the U.S. Treasury Department payment computers and finding a multitude of outgoing payments from the federal government that include no details about who they're going to and why. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste. And to do that, we started looking at the payment computers. And as mentioned earlier, there's no accounting of what payments actually go into the payment computer. And so in this article that in the interview with Jesse Waters, Elon Musk says, so what we started doing is saying, you must provide a receipt in order to get paid. He says there's been no more requests. Imagine that. There's been no more requests for payment. because, and even Elon Musk says, heck, they could have just uploaded a picture of their dog. We didn't say we're checking the receipts. we just we want them to upload something. But you see, if they upload something fraudulent, that's a federal crime. So very, very interesting that the request for the payments stopped when they said, well, we need a receipt in order to pay. What is this going for? So where's the money been going? We don't know. But I think they'll be finding things out. And, you know, and I'm just so glad. I'm just so glad. You know, they're adding budget codes. They have invalid budget codes. This is the type of thing that had to happen to help save our country. We have to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse, and take care of our country. It's kind of like when you're on the airplane, they say, put your mask on first before you help somebody else. Well, we have to save our country before we can help other nations, and frankly, save our people, because there's a lot of Americans that are living worse than paycheck to paycheck. They are living on their credit cards, and we need to help Americans, and that is exactly what Trump is doing. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we had President Trump he's had his fourth roundtable, board meeting, and invites the media in. And if you've not watched them, I'll tell you, go search them out. Search out and watch the board meetings. They are fascinating because you are hearing from the department heads what they're doing, what they're looking into, what they're finding. And this story right here that is out of PJ Media is what Marco Rubio found and mentioned at the last board meeting. I'm going to post a link to that down here in the comments. And it's, Marco Rubio said what he found, and he says, I'm not going to say whose it is, but they found a censorship. I'm trying to find it in this article again. And he said they had an office at the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And he says what he says next was what really shocked everyone. Not only was the Biden administration keeping files on U.S. citizens, but one of those people sitting there at the table, a member of the cabinet. He says, and by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers, and we're going to turn these over to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. And JD Vance, our vice president, asked, was it me or Elon in the room? It was funny when he said that. The room burst out laughing. But think about it. The Department of State of the United States set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency, Rubio continued. But remember, during all of COVID, they were censoring everybody. And Facebook was one of the worst. Well, Twitter was as well. But thank God, Elon Musk bought X, and that really broke open the free speech and the X files. Because the Twitter files, actually, because X files hasn't been disclosed, but the Twitter files were. And they were trying to strip people of their personal accomplishments, academic accomplishments, because they were speaking the truth about COVID, about the jab, about so many things. And the reason they would want files, and this does not surprise me, is because it's about censorship and the tyranny of that. And we have our First Amendment right. We have a Constitution that gives us the right to free speech and speak our mind. But there are those, and there are some states that are trying to pass legislation. We're going to get you a ticket or put you in jail if you do a meme, like they're trying to do over in Europe. But I'll tell you, we have to fight for every right continually that we have. It's our God-given rights and our constitutional rights as Americans, as American citizens. And so I just wanted to, I'll tell you what Rubio said was just mind-blowing, but yet, all of the people that Trump has put into place is just really, truly, I do believe, working for the American people. And it is so, so wonderful to see. Another big one was on Wednesday. I mentioned earlier Stephen Miller, and he was at the press briefing room, and he just went scorched earth on the media there, really calling them out for trying to, bolster this MS-13 terrorists and truly not being propagandists. So many of the media is propagandists, which is why it's refreshing that the Trump administration is bringing in alternative news sources, news people into the press briefing rooms so that truth can get out, because the so-called mainstream media, the ABCs, the CBS, the MSDNC, they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not. And so remember, there are people that faithfully watch them that they don't have a clue. They are listening to so much propaganda. They don't know about the truth of what the Trump administration is doing and actually doing on behalf of the American people. That is really good. So I wanted to end on a good note, and another good note. I've got two more things. As that, who are the mods? PJ Media did a great, Sarah Anderson did a great story, and on this, who are the mods, and then why did Biden try to ruin their lives? And this story I knew about before Wednesday, and the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, held up a photo of the Mod family at that board meeting and said, we have ended the lawsuit. The U.S. government dropped all the charges against the Mod family. And they were victims of lawfare launched and also Brooke Rollins said, they've launched a USDA portal to protect farmers. So if there is something going on, a farmer or somebody that the feds are still in a lawsuit, they can go and let them know that, hey, you know what? I'm being discriminated against for whatever. And the Mod family, it all started with a sign, and it started, when did it start? But I remember doing this and talking about this on Captive Audience. And in March of 24, March 29th of 24, Special Agent Travis Lunders and the U.S. Service Patrol Captain Jeff Summers told the mods they received a complaint from a hunter that a no trespassing sign was posted on a fence not built upon the correct boundary. The mods removed the sign from the fence. The family has owned the land property adjacent to the Forest Service since 1910. This is fifth generation. And so the federal government over a sign, well, this was government overreach. And I truly believe they were trying to break this family. And it's so sad to say that, but that's what I believe they were doing to try to get this ranch. And do I have proof of it? No, but that's what I believe, that's what they were trying to do. And so I am so glad that our government has pulled all of this, and I hope that this family, the mods, are compensated for what it has cost them for this lawfare. Sue the federal government. And I don't mind paying for that type of thing. You know, it's wrong. Much like I don't mind reimbursing Trump for all of his lawfare either. I truly don't. So Brooke Rollins added, the mods are not criminals. They've worked their land since the early 1900s, and something that should have been a minor civil land dispute that was over and done with quickly turned into an overzealous criminal prosecution on a hardworking family that was close to losing their home, children, and livelihood. And their children, for what? So kudos to dropping that lawlessness. That's wonderful. One last thing, if you know Dennis Prager, keep him in your prayers. Say some prayers for him. I'm going to post this, an update. He has suffered a setback, and he has quite debilitating. He suffered a back injury in a fall, and he really wants to get back to the radio. And, you know, PragerU, I mean, there is so many videos and that he did, that he's produced, him and his son. And Jack Posobiec is still on the radio show, you know, and still filling in, and he's been doing this for quite a while. And then Charlie Kirk, you know, that transitioned into Charlie Kirk doing Prager as well, Dennis Prager's hours from noon to 2. So it is, just keep him in your prayers. And in the link that I just posted in the comments there, is also a link that you could send him an email, you know, and send him something to say hi, you know, and let's help lift his spirits. He's contributed a lot to our country and to promoting the freedoms and talking about our constitutional rights, helping to educate Americans. And I think we need to show him support as well. Everybody, thank you for being with me tonight, and have a super weekend. I'll see you next week on Wednesday. Good night.